Castle is an orphan apprentice knight who lost his mother to demons as a child and has been training every single day to grow stronger. He is left behind every time the real knights are sent on missions because he is considered too weak. On first mission, his entire squad is wiped out by demons, and Castle himself faces a sorcerer powerful enough to kill him in a single strike. As he is pushed to the brink of death, he awakens the bloodline of the legendary king who defeated the original Dark Lord 100 years ago, making him the only person alive who can wield the holy sword and save humanity. However, before any of this, King Kyle defeated the Demon King long ago, but 100 years later, the demons have begun to move as they plan a vengeful invasion of the country. Castle is a young apprentice under Claus and struggles immensely to win a duel against his master. Despite his relentless efforts, Castle repeatedly loses each match while Claus insists he remains exactly one level ahead of his student. As members of the Guardian Knights, Castle and Flag patrol the city and unexpectedly encounter a dark elf moving freely through the streets. The citizens demand that the knights remove the elf from their city immediately. However, Castle explains that they cannot take action against him as long as he does not engage in suspicious behavior. His comrade Flag attempts to calm the restless citizens while Castle wanders elsewhere to find his friend Fry. She is a priestess who grew up alongside Castle and Claus within an orphanage. Worried that Castle might eat strange things like spiders or bugs, Fry prepares an apple for him. Meanwhile, the bedridden king receives a report from Belle stating that demons were spotted in a forest near the city. The king feels deep concern because the kingdom no longer possesses the formidable military strength it held a century ago. At the castle gate, Lord Moriham arrives accompanied by that same dark elf. The guards initially hesitate to let the elf pass until the lord displays his clear displeasure, prompting them to allow entry. Inside the castle, Belle discusses potential strategies with other officials to protect their kingdom. One official suggests sending a small group to confirm if the demons truly occupy the forest, though others argue that a small unit risks total elimination before they can report back. Just then, Lord Moriham arrives with a dark elf Reheat and suggests using his mercenary squad, Black Edge, to investigate the demons because they are a fierce and capable group. Belle argues against this by pointing out that the relationship between the kingdom of Orvelia and the Dark Elves has always been bitter. He wonders why they would offer help, but Reheat reveals they are simply men of hire with no personal interest in who employs them. After learning that Reheat intends to eliminate the demons solely for a reward, Belle rejects the offer and decides to send a royal squad for the investigation instead. Later, Castle has dinner with his comrades and learns they are ordered to enter the forest to investigate the demon sightings. Everyone prepares to go except Castle because he remains a mere apprentice. Claus instructs him to focus on his training while the unit is away. Elsewhere, a large group of Dark Elves has already reached the capital with the secret goal of seeking revenge for the hardships they suffered because of the kingdom. The next day, Castle trains diligently until he can meet Claus again. Several days pass while the squad investigates the forest, yet they find no signs of any demons. Suddenly, demons launch a surprise attack, and the entire squad finds itself unable to counter. Flag loses his life during the chaos, but Claus remains resolute and orders Gran to flee so he can report the situation to the high officials. The squad is ultimately eliminated, and only Claus remains to fight the horde. Soon, Gran returns to the capital alone, causing the citizens great worry as he is the only survivor to reappear. Gran reports that the squad encountered demons in the forest before he collapses from his injuries. The officials panic because they cannot allow the demons to reach the capital, leading Lord Moriham to once again insist they hire Black Edge. Outside, Castle learns that only Gran has returned and immediately decides to head into the forest to rescue Claus. When Fry hears of his plan, she chooses to go with him because she believes her skills as a priestess will be a vital help. Castle and Fry step inside the forest and observe the grim remains of the squad. They find Claus's shield fallen on the ground, but they breathe a sigh of relief when they discover another soldier behind it instead of their friend. However, their relief is short-lived as a group of demons quickly surrounds them. Castle attempts to counter the monsters, but he struggles against their immense power. When he sustains a minor injury and falls, Fry steps forward to defend him with her shield. Suddenly, a demon woman begins attacking the pair. Castle tries to defend them once more but fails to hold her back. Fortunately, the Black Edge mercenary group arrives and saves them by eliminating the surrounding demons. Rehit and his comrades attempt to kill the demon woman as well, but she manages to flee, telling Castle that they will meet again. After the battle, Castle thanks Rehit for the rescue. Rehit simply states that they only intervened because the kingdom hired them for the task. The Black Edge squad leaves to hunt more demons further in the forest. Soon after, two strangers named Cleo and Roy spot Castle and Fry. Cleo is a sorcerer and Roy serves as her bodyguard. Castle is confused by their presence since he has never met them and does not know what business they have with him. They explain that someone ordered them to bring the pair to him, prompting Castle and Fry to follow. They eventually reach a barren area near the sea, which leaves Fry puzzled until Cleo reveals their destination is the Tower of Sage where Dominic's awaits. Both Castle and Fry remember meeting Dominic's once when they were leaving the orphanage. Using her magic, Cleo transports all four of them to a town situated high in the air. While walking toward their meeting, Cleo reveals that Dominic's is actually the Great Sage. She explains that although he is quite old, he uses magic to maintain a youthful appearance. Castle and Fry are shocked by this revelation as they had no idea of his true identity. Upon meeting Dominic's, they learn that Claus is alive and resting in a nearby room. Castle informs the sage about the demon woman who attacked them, which visibly worries Dominic's. They soon visit Claus, who has sustained deep injuries but is currently out of danger. Claus gradually opens his eyes to see his friends, though he immediately expresses concern about the demons reaching the capital. Cleo suggests they eat dinner and head to their rooms, as Fry and Castle have permission to stay at the tower for a few days. Meanwhile at the capital, Rehit reports that his squad has eliminated all the demons in the forest and presents the head of a demon as proof. Belle appreciates the achievement of the squad but orders Rehit to dispose of the head immediately. Later, Lord Moriham enjoys a drink with Rehit as they celebrate their success. It is revealed that Moriham desires Belle's position of power while Rehit wants his race to gain more influence over humans. Back at the Saint Tower, Cleo escorts Fry to her room while Castle sits outside in the dark. Fry goes to him to listen to his worries. Castle reveals his desperate desire to grow stronger so he can defeat the demons himself. He admits feeling guilty for his inability to eliminate a single enemy earlier and explains that he does not want to lose anyone else close to him, having lost his mother to demons years ago. The next day, Dominic summons the two to discuss a vital matter. He straightforwardly reveals that Castle is actually the son of King Kyle. Castle reacts sharply to the news, unable to understand how this is possible given that King Kyle died 100 years ago. Despite his confusion, Dominic insists he is telling the truth and explains that he had instructed Castle's mother to keep the secret until the right time arrived. Rehit and his companions share lunch while discussing Ilia, the individual responsible for the initial persecution of dark elves within Orvelia. They reflect on the era of King Kyle, a time when dark elves lived peacefully and normally throughout the city. Meanwhile, Dominic explains to Castle that his father, Kyle, was once a prince characterized by his hard work and genuine curiosity regarding his people. His older half-sister, Ilia, loved him deeply despite their frequent quarrels. Kyle swore an oath to ensure the happiness of his subjects at any cost once he ascended the throne, and Ilia promised to support him whenever that day arrived. He dedicated himself to rigorous study and training to fulfill his vision. Eventually, he fell in love with Castle's mother, Arlette, who was a commoner. However, the nobility forced them apart because they intended for Kyle to enter a strategic political marriage. As time passed, demons launched an attack on the capital, and Kyle led the military forces to repel them. Following the death of his father, Kyle became king just as the demons were gaining strength due to the imminent arrival of the Dark Lord. Kyle assembled a diverse coalition from across the land, enlisting various races to combat this threat. During a stay at a military camp, Kyle reunited with Arlette and discovered she was pregnant with their child. Wishing for a son, he chose the name Castle. During this period, Lua, the goddess of light, bestowed a holy sword upon Kyle to defeat the Dark Lord. Simultaneously, Ilia worked tirelessly to aid her brother through her advanced technology. Ilia attempted to manufacture a replica holy sword to assist Kyle, but the public grew resentful of her efforts, viewing the experiment as a blasphemous act against the goddess of light. Meanwhile, Malduk, a sorcerer from the Republic of Grey, succeeded in opening a gate to another world to summon the Dark Lord. Once Ilia finished her work, she rushed to find Kyle but was tragically killed by demons during her journey. Following the climactic battle between Kyle and the Dark Lord, both disappeared along with the darkness that had covered the land, leaving only the Holy Sword behind. Kyle's companions sealed the weapon, and each took a key required to break that seal, ensuring the sword would be ready if the Dark Lord returned. After her death, Ilia was put on trial and found guilty, which triggered the widespread persecution of all Dark Elves and her own family. Back in the present, Castle struggles to process the revelation that he is the son of King Kyle. Despite his shock, he takes an oath to grow strong and use the Holy Sword to protect others and vanquish his enemies. Dominic suspects that the recent surge in demon activity is directly linked to the return of the Dark Lord. Consequently, he instructs Castle to travel to the forest of Elidora to meet Lorraine, the Grand Sage of the village of Kyle's former companion, to obtain a key for the seal. Since Dominic's cannot leave the tower, he arranges for Cleo and Roy to accompany them. Cleo and Roy overheard the entire conversation regarding Castle's heritage, and Dominic's reveals he was fully aware they were eavesdropping. The group then uses the teleportation circle to return to the world below while the demon woman watches them from afar. Castle and his friends have nearly reached the forest of Elidora when they are suddenly intercepted by a group of demons. Roy charges forward before the others can react and manages to strike down a small cluster of the monsters. However, the threat persists as even more demons emerge from the shadows to pursue them. Unexpectedly, an elf named Celine appears and eliminates the remaining enemies with her precise arrows. Once the path is clear, Castle and his companions approach Celine to thank her for saving them. After everyone introduces themselves, Celine reveals she is only present to escort Castle to her master, the Grand Sage. As the group enters the forest, they are amazed by its natural beauty and observe a tree ant walking peacefully before them. Celine remains cold toward the group because they are humans, and she makes it clear she is only following her master's instructions. Soon they enter an area where the voices of the forest began to speak ill of humanity. Through these whispers, the group discovers that Celine is actually a princess. Shortly after, the group loses sight of Celine and takes a wrong turn due to the interference of the sentient forest. They find themselves trapped near a cliff as the path behind them is blocked by shifting trees. Fry attempts to resolve the situation by speaking to the woods, but the forest does not respond to her. Suddenly, a young tree ant named Nekka pops out and signals for them to follow. Having no other options, they decide to trust him. The group eventually reunites with Celine as Nekka falls into her arms. Finding the creature adorable, Cleo gives him the nickname Chibi. As night falls, everyone rests after sharing a dinner of mushrooms. Castle spends his time sparring with Chibi. After their match, Celine observes that Chibi seems to see something unique in Castle and asks who he truly is. He explains that he is simply a nobody who wants to protect others and has come to meet Master Lorraine to gain the strength necessary to do so. Hearing this, Celine leaves to patrol the surrounding area. Once she is gone, the group discusses Castle, the Holy Sword, and the Dark Lord. Cleo notes that the Dark Lord and the Holy Sword have each only appeared once in history. They agree that the sword is capable of defeating the Dark Lord and that the identity of the wielder matters less than the goal of the fight. Despite the weight of these thoughts, Castle focuses solely on gaining strength to protect his friends. Everyone pledges to help him obtain the Holy Sword. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake and the group rushes to investigate the source of the disturbance. They witness a horrific scene where tree ants are fighting a massive demon equipped with many tentacles. One by one, the tree ants fall and lose their lives. An emotional Chibi tries to fight the demon despite the warnings from the others. Chibi is quickly caught in a tentacle, causing the group to panic. They combine their powers and skills to rescue him, but their attacks have little effect on the demon. During the struggle, Castle is also seized by a tentacle and is nearly thrown into a pool of poisonous fluid. He fights desperately to free himself to no avail. In a final act of sacrifice, Chibi unleashes his scales to save Castle, but the demon eliminates him in the process. Chibi's body disappears, leaving behind only a small green orb. The group is left in total shock while Castle rushes forward in a fit of rage and frustration to destroy the demon. Even after the monster is dead, Castle continues to strike the corpse repeatedly until Celine hugs him to make him stop. Following the incident, Master Lorraine appears directly behind them as Celine spots her arrival. Lorraine thanks Castle and his friends for saving their forest, yet Castle feels uneasy because he was unable to save Chibi. To cheer him up, Lorraine explains that Trey ants become one with the ground to begin their second life. When she notes that he has come to acquire power, he confirms his desire to obtain the Holy Sword so he can fight the demons and protect everyone. Celine is shocked because she never imagined he was the heir destined to use the Holy Sword. Unexpectedly, Celine refuses to open the seal immediately as she first wants to confirm if he is truly worthy of attaining that power. She warns that failing to control such strength will cost him both his body and his soul. She departs to discuss the matter the following day. Soon after, Celine guides the group to their room located inside the residence of Lorraine. Before stepping inside, Fry expresses a wish to bury Chibi's orb in his favorite spot. Celine leads them to the location where Lorraine also appears to assist with the burial. Lorraine digs a hole in the ground while Fry places the orb inside and offers prayers. Upon leaving, Lorraine instructs Celine to visit her later, and Castle's group returns to their room. Cleo is frustrated because she never expected Lorraine to delay the unsealing of the sword. Meanwhile, Castle steps outside to get some fresh air. Lorraine asks Celine for her thoughts on Castle and whether he is worthy of using the Holy Sword. Celine hesitates while recalling Castle's behavior throughout their journey. Ultimately, she remains silent because she is unsure what to say, so Lorraine tells her to keep thinking deeply about the matter. On her way back, Celine worries that Castle lost his temper after losing Chibi and notes that such behavior leads a person toward a path of destruction. Suddenly, she spots Castle talking to Chibi at the burial site. He admits his mistake of losing his temper while fighting the demon and points out that he does not need that kind of strength to protect others. Celine approaches him to offer encouragement just as two leaves unexpectedly grow out of Chibi's grave. Celine is shocked because this process usually takes a long time, but this specific case is different. The next day, Lorraine summons Castle and his friends to ask Celine the same question again. This time Celine speaks and explains that she initially found him unimpressive when he lost control against the demon, but she sees he has now realized his mistake and understands that his rage was not true power. Because he still seeks the right kind of power, she now believes he is worthy of acquiring the strength of the Holy Sword. Understanding this point of view, Lorraine decides to unseal the blade and begins casting a spell toward Castle. Everyone witnesses a mysterious power flowing around him, and the unsealed Holy Sword reacts to his presence. After the procedure, Cleo excitedly wonders if Castle feels more powerful, but to her surprise, he feels no different. Finally, one seal from the sword has been removed and only 2 keys remain. To find them, Castle must travel to see Itola, the leader of the orcs in the Orgia Mountain, and Pavle in the Withland Snow Mountain. As the group prepares to leave, a demon attacks the forest and everyone rushes outside. Shockingly, it is the same demon they fought the previous night, having completely regrown from one of its seeds. Castle immediately charges and finishes off the demon by himself. Celine observes that he has brought forth a presence completely different from the night before. After defeating the demon, Castle and his friends say goodbye to the forest and depart. Out of nowhere, they encounter the same demon woman from earlier as she starts a fight with Castle. However, this time Castle reacts instantly and faces her directly. While they fight, the woman senses the power of the Holy Sword coming from him, which causes her to flinch. Cleo then mentions that he is actually the son of King Kyle and will inherit the Holy Sword. The demon lady is shocked and reveals that the Holy Sword is actually Lua's curse before she leaves. Castle's group reaches a bustling town filled with people, which makes Cleo excited at the prospect of eating different kinds of food and visiting new places. Upon entering Market Street, she buys all sorts of food to eat using their collective money. After enjoying the meal, the group starts to move ahead, but Cleo remains unsatisfied. She insists on visiting a sightseeing spot, but Castle is against it because he does not want to waste their time staying in this town. However, Cleo insists that the people here rebuilt that site after witnessing a war 30 years ago, which eventually makes Castle agree to the visit. With that settled, the whole group decides to visit the town and stay in an inn. Cleo starts spending money on various items and eventually ends up with only a few coins, leaving them unable to afford staying in an inn. The whole group gets frustrated, but Cleo soon finds work in a restaurant so they can afford a place to stay at night. She is going to cook in the kitchen while Roy has to serve the customers and Fry is in charge of making tea. On the other hand, Castle needs to cut firewood in the backyard of the restaurant. While cutting the wood, He keeps recalling the words of that demon woman and wonders how the holy sword can be a curse when it was made to eliminate the Dark Lord. Inside the kitchen, the fellow cooks are amazed when they find out that Cleo is a sorceress and they get curious to see her magic. Even though Cleo initially decides not to show off, she ends up demonstrating her fire magic. She overdoes it and the whole restaurant catches fire instantly. As a result, the group does not get paid and they end up spending the night on the streets. Cleo gets depressed and feels guilty. On the other hand, Roy points out that Cleo has a good potential of becoming a great sorceress. However, he notes she knows too little about the outside world. Feeling worried, Fry decides to sleep beside Cleo, and Cleo finds her to be very kind. She then reveals that she does not remember her mother's face, but only her fire magic and the things she told her about how being stronger means one needs to go through a lot of sadness. The next morning, Fry wakes up Castle and shows him a note from Roy saying that he has left to find some work. On the other hand, Cleo appears and tells them that she has found work for them. In the meantime, Roy sells his dagger to someone in exchange for coins. Cleo and the others leave the main town and go to the outskirts to find the restaurant where they are going to work. Shortly they arrive at the restaurant and find an old lady waiting for them. She is quite strict with them as she assigns them the work immediately. All three of them start doing their work wholeheartedly, and Cleo flies around the restaurant on her wand to make her work easier. When the old lady finds that she is a sorcerer, she gives her even more work, which makes Cleo frustrated. They both end up arguing with each other, and they start quarreling like children. In the evening, the old lady sees Cleo is all dirty and instructs her to take a shower. Shortly after, she prepares a meal for everyone, and they enjoy her warm cooking. She explains that because her restaurant is in the outskirts, she gets few customers and she rarely cooks. Furthermore, she only cooks on coals, which increases the total time of cooking. When Cleo decides to help her with her fire magic, the old lady stops her from doing so. She gets triggered whenever she sees fire because 30 years ago a war broke out and this place burnt with fire. Her whole family died in the fire along with all the buildings nearby, except her and her restaurant. Therefore, she does not want to see that tragedy again, which makes Cleo sad. She steps outside to get some fresh air and keeps thinking about her mother's words. Out of nowhere, she sees a group of demons going towards the restaurant. She immediately reacts and Castle also comes outside. They both engage in a fight against those demons while Fry protects the old lady and guides her to escape from the back door. The elder comes outside and sees Cleo hesitating to use her fire magic. She regrets making her act that way because she sees that Castle and Fry are having a hard time. She immediately yells at Cleo to use her fire magic so she can save her friends. Realizing that she needs to use her magic to protect others, she casts a fire spell that eliminates all the remaining demons. The elder thanks them for saving her and the restaurant while Cleo hugs her tightly. Shortly after, Roy appears and hands over the coins he got earlier. This time, Fry decides to manage their finances so they will not go broke again. The group continues their journey while Cleo thinks that she may have understood her mother's words a little bit better. Reheat and his squad eliminate a number of demons in the forest. After they return, Moriham states that Belle wants to see him. Later, Reheat goes to see Belle, who is accompanied by Princess Scarlet and a sorceress named Ophelia. Ophelia observes that the nocturnal sun is about to cross with the moon, and once it crosses, darkness will spread throughout the world. Princess Scarlet understands the gravity of the situation and instructs her to keep observing the moon so they can remain updated. When Reheat appears before them, Belle greets him and mentions that he wanted him to meet the princess who controls the forces of the kingdom. Scarlet appreciates the achievements of Black Edge and instructs Reheat to join their regular meeting tomorrow, as she officially welcomes him to join her knights. Later, Reheat instructs his squad not to draw attention to themselves in town to avoid risking their position. The next morning, Scarlet briefs her knights that they must be cautious because the Dark Lord could appear soon, but she emphasizes that they need to prioritize eliminating the demons first. Reheat steps inside during the middle of the meeting, and Scarlet introduces him to everyone formally. She announces that Black Edge will be joining them for this mission. However, a man named Zierro opposes the idea. He points out that they should not forget what Ilia did in the past, but the princess states that Black Edge has nothing to do with her. As no one else opposes the decision, Zierro gives in and accepts Scarlet's order. He then throws his pocket watch toward Reheat, which contains an emblem. He points out that there are some rats lurking in the town, which makes Rahit uncomfortable, though he still responds well. The princess announces that Black Edge is now their official ally and warns that anyone who tries to insult them will be punished. Continuing the meeting, she asks Rahit if there is anything he wants to change, and he states that they need to scout other areas rather than just the capital. Later, Tam goes to buy bread for his friends, but the baker gives it to him for free because the squad defeated the demons in the forest. Tam is stunned but takes the bread. While walking back through a dark alley, a group of men surround him. Tam wants to take them down but remembers his leader telling them not to do anything that would risk their position. He tries to run away, but because he has a fever, he ends up getting slightly injured. Fortunately, Azal arrives and scares the assaulters away, and they leave behind one of their swords. Azal checks on Tam just as a girl from the bakery appears to offer first aid. She runs to find a doctor, but Azal stops her because he does not want to attract unnecessary attention. Later, the two return to their headquarters, which frustrates their comrades. Rahit decides not to take any action for now and appreciates Tam for not responding with violence. In the evening, Rahit tells Mori Ham about the incident, and he suspects that Ziero must be the one behind it. The next day, Scarlet apologizes to Rahit for the pain they suffered, especially since they are the reason the demons were eliminated. After returning, Rahit examines the sword that Azal brought back and realizes it contains the same emblem found on Ziero's pocket watch. He immediately rushes out to chase him, and his sister Ripon follows. He stands directly before a carriage carrying Ziero and his father. Ziero feels chills from Rahit's deadly stare and starts running in the opposite direction, only to find Ripon blocking his path. At last, Ziero admits his mistake and begs Rahit to spare his life, as does his father. Back at their base, Tam mentions that it is good to see that some people in Orvelia have a heart. When his comrades question what he means, he immediately covers it up by saying he is talking about the princess who apologized to Rahit. Castle's party continues their journey and spots a small girl in their way, making them realize that there must be a village nearby. Soon they reach that village where they meet its mayor, who identifies them as travelers. He explains that due to the demons' involvement, people from a nearby village have come here to take shelter. Nearby, a couple is having difficulty in carrying large wood logs, and Fry rushes over to heal a small injury on the lady's leg. The whole group decides to help the people there. Everyone starts helping out with different chores while Fry goes straight to the children. She also finds that kid they saw in the forest. However, that kid runs away as soon as Fry tries getting close to her. Another kid explains to Fry that her name is Elise and she is living here without her parents while never talking to anyone. Fry feels worried and finds her standing outside staring at yellow flowers. She hugs her to help her out with her magic, but it isn't as effective as it should be. Later, Castle and the others decide to leave and continue their journey. However, Fry requests them to stay here for the night, and the others agree as they see her insisting on them. The mayor of the village gets happy when he hears about them staying here for the night. With that, everyone starts helping around while Fry goes to play with the kids. They make flower crowns with daisies, but Elise wants to make the crown with the yellow flowers, so Fry helps her out with that. Later, they draw together and Elise makes a drawing of those yellow flowers. Unexpectedly, she reacts sharply towards a fellow kid and ends up running outside. Later, Fry finds her staring at those yellow flowers again, and surprisingly the child reveals that these flowers were her mother's favorite. When Fry asks about her mother, Elise reveals that the demons killed her. She gets emotional and starts crying, making Fry hug her tightly. In the evening, Cleo overhears a conversation between the mayor and Fry. The mayor wants her to live along with them and asks her to think about it. At night, when everyone is sleeping, Fry gets up to see the kids. While on the other hand, Cleo tells Castle and Roy that the mayor wants to recruit Fry. The next day, when the group is about to leave, the mayor insists they take away a basket of bread as a token of appreciation for helping them out. Cleo helps them by baking some bread, while Elise takes Fry towards the forest. Unexpectedly, Elise locks up Fry in an abandoned house so she won't be able to leave her side. Time passes, and Cleo returns back with a basket full of bread. However, they feel strange not to find Fry. So Castle decides to find her, and on his way he finds Elise. He politely insists on her to reveal what she has in her mind. Shortly, Elise guides Castle to that house where Fry is present, but before they can reach it, a huge demon comes outside from the ground. Elise hides behind a tree while Castle fights the demon, and on the other hand, Fry feels that there is another demon coming from the ground. This makes her try breaking the lock with an axe so she could help her friends. Soon the second demon comes out and is about to attack Elise, but fortunately Fry appears and makes a shield to protect the little kid. In the meantime, Castle defeats the first demon and waits for the second demon to come out of the ground. As soon as it comes out, Fry attacks with her magic and Castle eliminates it completely. Later they report everything to the mayor, who appreciates them for their bravery. After saying their farewells, the whole group continues their journey. Castle's party reaches another village where they find a weird-looking man standing in front. When Roy approaches him, the man turns to attack, but fortunately Roy finishes him off instantly. Castle is shocked, yet Roy explains that the attacker was an undead. Soon, more undead beings start chasing them, so they retreat to a house nearby to seek shelter from the horde. In the house, they meet Johan, who has been living there for a long time. He points out that these creatures are sensitive to loud sounds, so he asks the group not to create unnecessary noise. He explains that some time ago this village was attacked by demons and many people were killed while a few managed to escape. After some time the demons left the village, but soon the villagers who died earlier came back and started attacking the remaining survivors. Johan is the only survivor left in this village and has stayed alive on his own by sealing his house. Seeing the same yellow flowers that Elisa's mother liked, Fry mentions her name aloud. This makes Johan react sharply as he asks more about Elise. Fry reveals that she is living in a nearby village and is currently doing fine. The man feels great relief and reveals that Elise is his daughter and that they were separated when the demons attacked the village. Later, the group prepares to sleep in one of the rooms while discussing the nature of the undead. They conclude that undead are just moving corpses who remain hostile against all living things. Later, when everyone is sleeping, Castle hears a noise and gets up to investigate. He finds a basement, and below he sees Johan talking to a captured undead. He addresses the creature as Lisa and tells her to eat so she can feel better before they go to meet Elise. Castle goes back to the room and tells Roy that there is an undead in the basement, so they decide to talk this out with Johan. As soon as Johan comes out of the basement, the whole group starts interrogating him. They want to know the whole story, and Johan reveals that he found his late wife alive again and captured her with the help of his friends. He still believes that she is his wife, Lisa, and thinks that she will be alright as time passes by. However, Roy tells him that there is no going back for Lisa and she can never become normal again. On the other hand, Castle reminds Johan to think about Elise, because he still has time to protect what is truly precious to him. Giving it some thought, Johan requests to be left alone for a while. He goes straight to Lisa and starts persuading her again. However, this time she frees herself to attack him. Unexpectedly, Johan calls her a monster, which immediately makes him feel disgusted with himself. In the meantime, Roy appears and ties Lisa up again, telling Johan to finish her off. Johan screams in pain, which causes the surrounding undead to flock towards his house. Soon, they start knocking on the door violently, making the group alert. Everyone leaves immediately to counter the undead, but Castle stands and observes Johan to feel his pain. Soon, he also steps out, and the whole party deals with the undead horde. In the meantime, Johan gathers up the courage to eliminate the undead Lisa, as he finally knows that she is not the Lisa he once knew. The next day, he leaves to reunite with his daughter Elise. Dark Edge returns to the capital after successfully clearing an area, and they receive a warm welcome from the citizens. This reception makes Tam feel good. He soon spots the bakery where he previously received free bread and tells his friends to go ahead without him. He asks the bakery owner about the girl he met that day, and the owner tells him her name is Sheila while guiding him to her workplace. In the meantime, Rahit submits his report and meets Claus. Claus thanks him for saving his friends in the forest a few days ago, but Rahit mentions that he does not remember them at all before leaving. Princess Scarlet meets her father to check on his condition, and he comments on how happy it makes him to see his daughter. However, he points out that like her mother, Scarlet has a habit of not doubting anyone. He warns her to be cautious around the Black Elves. Outside, she meets Rahit and appreciates his work on the last mission. She has also stationed forces in areas other than the capital. Tam arrives at the bakery to meet Sheila and return her handkerchief. He sincerely thanks her for treating his injury that day, and she shrugs it off by saying that they are helping the people by fighting demons. As a token of thanks, she asks him to eat her handmade cake. Tam returns late for dinner, which makes Rahit grow a bit suspicious. The next day at the meeting, Rahit advises sending a group to the Galua Plains in the ruins of the Republic of Grey, where the Dark Lord is expected to be summoned. Rahit requests that Black Edge serve as the vanguard, and Scarlet approves the request. Meanwhile, Tam enjoys Sheila's handmade cake, but expresses concern that she might get into trouble if anyone sees her sitting with a dark elf. She points out that they are heroes who have eliminated many demons, and it does not matter what he is as long as he is being himself. Unfortunately, Azal sees Tam talking with the girl and feels annoyed. Later, when Tam returns, Azal reacts sharply and punches him in the face. Holding his collar, he scolds him for meeting a girl and lying to the group. Rahit returns, but instead of saying anything harsh, he reminds Tam to pay attention to the things that are more important. Tam goes outside to cool his head, and Ripon joins him. Frustrated, Tam reveals Sheila's name and mentions that he felt good when the people thanked them. However, Ripon reminds him that they are not doing this to receive thanks. Tam points out that it is better to live happily rather than living just for the sake of revenge. While recalling a painful memory, she states that after their mother was eliminated, she only had Rahit to protect her as an older brother. Now she wants to help her brother no matter what, even if she has to eliminate Tam if he ever becomes a hurdle. The next day, Tam gives flowers to Sheila in exchange for the cake she made for him. He explains that on his birthday, his mother used to make a cake. On one of those birthdays, they were waiting for his father to return home so they could enjoy the cake together. However, his father arrived covered in blood. He died right in front of them while his mother was killed while protecting him and his siblings. The forces of Orvelia found their village and eliminated everyone. He was the only survivor of his family and was later found by his current group. He decides not to meet Sheila again because the difference between them is too big. Malduk is super excited to summon the Dark Lord once again after waiting for 100 years. The demon lady, Maria, joins him and works by his side to facilitate the summoning. A century ago, Malduk served in the royal castle of the Republic of Grey. While the king lay ill on his deathbed, his daughter Jane remained by his side. During this time, Malduk caught a knight named Theo talking with the princess and warned them to be mindful of their behavior. Soon the king died just as their nation was entering a war, which left their kingdom in a weak position. To remedy this, Malduk proposed a plan to bring the king back to life through forbidden magic. After receiving permission, Malduk brought the king back as an undead creature, which resulted in nothing but total destruction. Theo eventually captured Malduk to punish him for his deeds and sent him into exile. Filled with a desire for revenge, Malduk began making plans to bring down all of humanity. Back in the present, Castle's group reaches the Red Valley where the orcs live. They find the orcs fighting each other aggressively, but upon closer observation, they realize they are actually battling undead orcs. Without wasting any time, the group jumps into the fight and eliminates the undead. The two surviving normal orcs thank the group, though they remain distant. One of them is Dale, who states they cannot allow humans to enter their lands anymore. However, his master is a shaman named Kaula, who tells him to back off because he already knew the group was going to arrive. After offering prayers to the dead orcs, the orc shaman explains that he had a dream of a hero who was destined to appear here soon. His apprentice is not pleased by the visitors and receives a scolding from Kaula, who reminds him that his dream interpretations are never wrong. Castle reveals they want to meet Itola, the orc chief, to unseal the holy sword. Unfortunately, the shaman reveals that the previous chief is dead. The current chief is Sieg, and he is the one who manages matters regarding the seal. The shaman explains that a few days ago a human sorcerer arrived, after which many of their comrades disappeared. When those orcs finally returned, they had all become undead. Consequently, no one in the valley trusts any human now. To help Castle, Kaula decides to take him to meet the chief alone, leaving his friends behind. He even plans to risk his life to protect Castle if the chief raises a sword against him. Afterward, Fry and Roy worry about Castle, but Cleo tries to calm them by doodling on one of the sacred orc pillars. A couple of orcs arrive and show aggression toward them. They try to settle the situation, but the orcs see the doodles Cleo made and capture the group immediately. Meanwhile, Pavle takes Castle to meet their leader, and all the orcs watch Castle coldly as they pass. Chief Sieg steps outside, appearing much stronger and more muscular than the other orcs. When he learns that Castle is claiming to be the heir to the Holy Sword, he immediately challenges him to a duel. Sieg declares that if Castle wins, it proves he is the heir, but if he loses, he must die. Pavle steps forward and tries to explain to the chief that if Castle dies, the hope for a better future dies with him. After a series of negotiations, Sieg aims an attack toward Castle. When he sees that Castle does not flinch at all, he finally reveals that the previous chief instructed him to take anyone claiming to be the heir to the Holy Shrine. Castle needs to bring back an object left there by the previous chief. In the meantime, his friends arrive as hostages. The chief decides that if Castle passes this test, his friends will be set free, but if he fails, they will all die along with him. Pavle escorts Castle to the Holy Shrine and explains that the altar serves as the test site. Taking note of everything, Castle steps inside and eventually reaches the altar where he discovers the grave of the previous chief. Soon after, voices begin to bother him as they demand he prove whether his heart is weak or strong. Shortly, he finds himself walking in a dark void until he sees a familiar door. As soon as he steps inside, he is greeted by his mother who is waiting for him so they can have breakfast together. Unexpectedly, Castle forgets his past and is transformed into his younger self. They enjoy breakfast together, and because the weather is pleasant, his mother suggests going out for a walk. Meanwhile, as Cleo provokes the orcs with her words, they move the prisoners and place them in a camp. Back with Castle, he and his mother take a walk through a field of flowers. They sit down for a small picnic where Castle enjoys his mother's sandwiches. He mentions that it feels as though it has been a long time since they spent time together like this, but his mother claims they have been together every day. Later that night, when his mother sees his eyes closing, she advises him to sleep since it is late. He insists on spending more time with her, but eventually falls asleep. The moment he closes his eyes, the day repeats itself and his mother again tells him to have breakfast. During the meal, she suggests once more that they go for a walk. In that moment, Castle realizes something is wrong, though his mother insists he should not think too much. He resists her and eventually states that his mother is dead. The moment he speaks these words, he returns to his current self. His mother wonders why he had to say that, noting that if he had remained silent, they could have lived there happily forever. She tries to corner him by saying it would be much better if the demons had never attacked the village and if she were still by his side. She begs him to stay forever so he can have the easy, happy life he desired. Still, Castle straightforwardly states that he must protect everyone from the demons and therefore must go back. He steps out through the same door he entered and returns to reality. Shortly after, the spirit of the previous chief materializes and congratulates Castle for passing the test. He explains that humans have the weakest hearts and are easily tricked by illusions. The spirit disappears and leaves behind a stone emblem which Castle takes with him. The next morning, he returns with Pavle and is welcomed back by his friends. Chief Sieg appears and Castle hands over the emblem. After observing the item, he recognizes it and declares to all the orcs that it belonged to their previous chief. He announces that it serves as proof that Castle is indeed the heir to the Holy Sword. Following this, he unseals the second seal of the Holy Sword by aiming his power toward Castle. As soon as the seal is broken, Malduk senses the massive energy of the Holy Sword from afar. He immediately teleports to the Red Valley, where the orcs recognize him as the sorcerer who turned their comrades into the undead. Chief Sieg immediately moves forward to attack, but Malduk hits him with a powerful spell. The chief falls but manages to survive. Dale then fires an attack, but Malduk intercepts it with the same spell, and the chief takes the blow to protect Dale. Realizing this is the same Malduk who once summoned the Dark Lord, Castle and his group step forward to eliminate him. In the process, Fry takes a heavy blow from Malduk. This angers Castle and he gives his all to destroy the sorcerer. By fighting him, Malduk realizes that Castle is truly the heir to the Holy Sword. After a series of attacks, Castle prepares to unleash a powerful move, but before he can land it, Malduk teleports away. After unleashing that final powerful move, Castle falls to the ground while his friends become extremely worried. Castle still has not woken up, and Fry is writing a letter to Claus. She writes down each and everything they have seen and experienced so far. She tells him all about their journey from the forest of Ilia to the Red Valley of the Orcs. However, she feels a bit worried about Castle because he still has not regained consciousness, and she wonders how long it is going to take. Meanwhile, Cleo points out that they should be optimistic about everything, or else they will not be able to help Castle. Frey's letter eventually ends up in Claus's hand, and he smiles after reading the whole thing. The whole Black Edge group steps inside the castle to meet the princess. The elves joke around and laugh in front of her, clearly taking her presence lightly. Princess Scarlet ignores their behavior as she focuses on the main agenda, which is preparing for the upcoming grand expedition. They are planning to travel to the Republic of Grey, the exact location where the Dark Lord was summoned a century ago. When she observes that the elves are still not taking her seriously, she points at Azal and challenges him to a duel. They step out to the training grounds and grab wooden swords to settle the matter. The match begins with both participants showing a serious intensity. Azal gives his absolute best, yet he finds himself consistently pushed back by the princess. Soon, Scarlet breaks his sword with great precision, leaving him and the rest of the elves completely shocked. Everyone falls quiet as they witness Scarlet's true power. Rehit realizes exactly what she was aiming for from the start. She wanted to earn their trust and respect through a display of her own strength. At the same time, Lord Moriham tries cornering the other nobles to bring them over to his side. He wants to be awarded the title of honorary noble if Black Edge returns with great success. Although all the other nobles are totally against the idea, Moriham insists they support him because he intends to remove Bel from the picture. In the evening, the Dark Elves grow excited at the news of Rehit potentially becoming a noble, though they remain concerned about the princess. Rehit explains the situation. While they are away with the princess, Moriham will take the chance to seize Bel's position. Without Bel, no noble will take Scarlet's side, allowing her to be easily cast aside. On the other hand, Bel insists that Scarlet should not go on this expedition, noting that the king will be devastated if she is injured. She argues that he is being stubborn and points out that they have already discussed the matter many times. Claus soon appears and asks to speak with the princess. He mentions that he has a friend named Castle who was his apprentice and is now traveling to deal with the demons in his own way. Scarlet doesn't immediately understand why he is telling her this, but Claus explains that he wants her to know they are not the only ones fighting against the darkness. The next morning, the forces gather to depart from the city. Sheila wants to meet Tam one last time, but he chooses to ignore her. The forces march all day and set up camp at night. Rehit explains to his group that once they reach the Republic of Grey, they will separate from the princess's forces to act on their own. While the others leave to eat dinner, Ripon stays behind. Scarlet appears and encourages her to join the others, but Ripon states that she dislikes large crowds. When the princess mentions that she looks like Rehit and envies their sibling bond, Ripon reacts sharply, claiming Scarlet will never understand them. The next day, the forces separate as Rehit's group travels through the ruins toward the Republic of Grey. While walking, Tam spots a strange-looking symbol on the ground and reaches out to touch it. The moment he makes contact, a surge of strange energy erupts from the earth, causing him to suffer heavily. His comrades are shocked, and Rehit orders his men to stay back as he moves forward to check on him. Unfortunately, he finds that Tam has already lost his life. As the group mourns, Malduk suddenly teleports directly in front of them, prepared to take action. Rehit and his men remain bewildered as Malduk declares the area a demon territory. Malduk soon transforms Tam into an undead creature, and when Azal approaches, Tam stabs him to death. The Black Elves begin to resist their former ally, leading Ripon to eliminate Tam herself. One by one, the elves fall to Malduk's relentless attacks until only Ripon and Rehit remain standing. Utilizing their teamwork, they successfully corner Malduk and Ripon pierces her sword directly through him. Unfortunately, Malduk repels them both with overwhelming power, delivering a heavy blow to Ripon. Malduk heals himself instantly, but Maria suddenly appears and mocks him for his perceived weakness. Upon noticing Rehit's pendant, her expression shifts as if she has recalled a significant memory. Meanwhile, Rehit enters a blind rampage after seeing his sister lying unconscious on the ground. He manages to give Malduk a difficult fight, but Maria intervenes and forces him to suffer through her dark magic. Sensing the arrival of the kingdom's forces, Malduk and Maria decide to retreat. though Maria continues to stare intently at Rahit's pendant before vanishing. As reinforcements arrive, the princess immediately orders her soldiers to locate any survivors and provide them with urgent medical assistance. Elsewhere, Castle experiences a sharp and terrible pain, yet he fortunately wakes up to Frey's immense relief. Soon, more companions arrive and express their joy at seeing him awake. It is revealed that he has been unconscious for the past 2 weeks. Castle immediately tries to get up to search for Malduk, fearing the villain will resurrect the Dark Lord, and he expresses his urgent need to claim the Holy Sword as soon as possible. Kaula advises him to rest despite knowing how much he desires the blade. Roy points out that Castle went on such an uncontrollable rampage that he collapsed, which deeply worries Castle. In the meantime, Dale has become a devoted fan of Castle and addresses him as Master. He showers Castle with compliments and even begins to cry while expressing his admiration. Dale rushes out to announce that Castle has awakened while Cleo leaves to fetch some food for him. Eventually, Castle steps outside to get some fresh air. He is shocked when he sees the massive crater he created during his last battle. He feels a wave of guilt for failing to save Chief Sieg, but Kaula reassures him that the chief died a prideful death and is now watching over them from beyond. Furthermore, Kaula has accepted the responsibility of leading their tribe and vows to do anything in his power to help Castle. Castle notes that his inability to control such power led to drastic results. He fears that if such an outburst happened in a crowd, many innocent people would have been hurt. This realization haunts him because he wants to protect others with his life rather than endanger them. Kaula explains that while Castle's mind is strong, he must also strengthen his heart to manage the power of the Holy Sword. He emphasizes that this power should be used for protection rather than being fueled by hatred. That night, the group falls asleep after dinner, but Castle gets up and walks back to the crater. Fry soon joins him there. Castle admits that he is terrified of losing control like he did in the last fight. Understanding his emotional distress, Fry tries to calm him by noting that he always follows through on his decisions. She tells him he can rest assured that everything will be fine as long as his heart remains strong. The following day, the party departs from the Orc lands, but Kaula calls Fry back to share an important message. He reveals that in a dream, he saw Castle successfully defeating the darkness but at the cost of his own life. He implores Fry to take care of Castle and stay close to him during the journey ahead. While refilling a water bottle from the river, Fry is suddenly spotted by a mercenary named Reyna. Unexpectedly, Reyna mistakes Fry for someone else and even assumes that she has run away from home with a guy. Just then Roy arrives on the scene, and Reyna immediately believes that he is the man with whom she ran away. Soon Cleo and Castle arrive as well, and then Reyna is finally able to understand that she took everything the wrong way. After apologizing for the confusion, she introduces herself and mentions that the village nearby has hired her for a specific task. It turns out that Castle's party is also going to that same village to rest for a night. Reyna decides to go along with them since they are all heading toward the same place. However, she tells them not to mention anything about Orvelia because they are currently in a sensitive area. Upon reaching the village, the group gets to know that the local inn is already full. Reyna steps forward and requests the receptionist to let them stay with her by claiming that they are traveling with her. Out of nowhere, a kid named Leiden comes to meet Reyna and then immediately rushes out to buy something for himself. Later on, Castle and his friends sit in the dining area where they hear the local black elves talking ill about Orvelia. Lots of people have gone missing since last month, and the villagers think that maybe Orvelia is the one behind it. Reyna explains to Castle's party that since last month, both humans and dark elves have started to disappear and no one has any clue how to solve this mystery. Dark elves suspect Orvelia is responsible, and that is the specific reason why Reyna asked the group not to reveal that they are from Orvelia. Shortly after this, the receptionist informs Reyna that Leiden has disappeared. Worried by the news, she immediately rushes out to find him, and Castle's group also helps out along with the other villagers. After some time passes, no one is able to find the little kid and his parents get super worried. Reyna suggests finishing the search for Leiden by making their search area much wider. But on the other hand, Roy does not want his party to get involved with this matter. He does not want to delay their departure, which is scheduled for the next morning. However, Castle insists on finding Leiden and points out that there are many more people who have gone missing lately. Eventually, Roy agrees to help the villagers in finding the missing people. Everyone goes their separate ways into the forest to find more clues, and Castle ends up making a team with Reyna. Going forward, he hears a weird sound and goes in that direction to investigate. Unfortunately, he ends up slipping on his foot, and even though Reyna tries to pull him up, they both end up falling down together. When they open their eyes, they find themselves in a dark tunnel area. This place is also new to Reyna, and they think that they need to wait for others to help them get out of this place. Reyna points out that Castle's friends seem to respect his opinion a lot, and she wonders if he is some kind of an important person. This prompts Castle to reveal that he is actually the heir to the Holy Sword. Reyna does not react much, but she knows about the Holy Sword, which was once used by King Kyle. However, Castle mentions that currently he is a dangerous person because he does not know how to control his power and may hurt the people around him. This is the exact opposite of what he wants for himself, as he wants to protect people and not hurt them. Reyna tries changing his perception by saying that he does not need to carry that weight and could live a normal ordinary life in Orphan. She reveals that she is actually the daughter of a noble, and her parents wanted her to marry another noble for the sake of politics. She did not want to live like that, so she ran away and now lives freely the way she wants. But Castle insists that he really wants to protect people from the demons and does not want to back off from his duty. Suddenly, Reyna spots Leiden's shoe lying on the ground near them. Seeing that, they both decide to go ahead and find more clues. Eventually, they end up inside a spider demon nest where they see all the missing people being trapped inside its web. Unexpectedly, Cleo is one of them, as she got stuck in the webs in the forest when she was searching for Leiden. Reyna and Castle draw out their weapons and start fighting the spider. In the middle of the fight, Castle hesitates to strike the spider as he keeps thinking about his last fight with Malduk. The spider sends his sword flying away, and when Reyna tries hitting the spider, she also ends up stuck in the spider's web. Seeing the situation, Castle refuses to give up and takes his sword to unleash a powerful move that eliminates the spider completely. The next morning, all the missing people finally reunite with their loved ones. Castle thanks Reyna for everything and claims that her way of living is also very interesting. With that, Castle and his friends depart from the village to reach the snowy mountains. Scarlet's forces are currently camping at the village where Castle and his friends previously spent the night. The princess expresses her gratitude to the village mayor because he has provided her men with essential assistance regarding food and shelter for the injured Rehit. As their conversation continues, the mayor also mentions Castle and his friends who stayed there to help the villagers by eliminating a dangerous demon nearby. The princess is stunned to hear this news because Castle was only an apprentice knight, yet he still managed to defeat a demon. Later on, her assistant reports that Rehit remains unconscious, and they discuss how his entire group was tragically annihilated during the recent battle. At night, they visit Rehit while he is still asleep, and they struggle to understand why he is taking such a long time to wake up. On the other hand, the assistant suggests that they should return to Orphan immediately. She believes they need to prepare themselves to fight the enemy properly. However, Scarlet does not agree with this plan because she believes that only Rehit knows the specific details of the enemy, and she feels they cannot move forward without the information he possesses. The next day, Scarlet meets with Elise and several other girls who have come to give her some flowers. Scarlet also meets with Elise's father, who reveals that he has planned to live with his daughter somewhere peacefully once everything finally gets settled down. On the other hand, a knight reports to the nobles at the castle that Black Edge has been completely annihilated with only one survivor remaining. Everyone is stunned by the news, but Lord Moriham refuses to accept the truth and demands that the soldier tell him the actual information. Soon, this news spreads through the entire capital like wildfire, and the citizens cannot believe that their favorite squad has fallen. Sheila also hears about this tragedy and runs away while crying because she cannot bear the painful thought that Tam has lost his life. Meanwhile, the princess visits Rehit once again and surprisingly finds that he is gradually opening his eyes. Scarlet immediately goes to his side as he asks about the members of his group. Scarlet straightforwardly informs him that his group was annihilated by the time her forces arrived and that he was the only survivor found. Rehit is unable to digest this heavy information and tells Scarlet to give him some time alone. She steps out of the room and instructs the medical officer to provide him with some food after a little while. Later, when the officer goes to bring him food, he finds that Rehit has already run away. Worried by this, everyone starts searching for him while he is walking through the forest with his sword. He wants to take revenge for his friends, but he wonders why he was the only survivor of the massacre. He cries out in pain as he hears the echoes of his lost friends and his sister in his mind. Soon, Scarlet finds him and insists that he cannot go on an adventure in his current physical state. This makes Rehit laugh at her mockingly as he reveals that his people find Orvelians even more disgusting than the demons. He points out that the Orvelians were the ones who slaughtered their mothers and fathers and even burned all of their villages into thin dust. However, Scarlet has no idea what he is talking about, which only makes him even angrier. Regardless of his rage, he soon collapses because his body is still far too weak. At night, Rehit wakes up again and sneaks outside while Scarlet is sleeping in the same room. While in the forest, Maria spots him and appears right in front of him. He demands that she tell him why she did not kill him during their last encounter. She then points at his pendant and reveals that it originally belonged to Ilia. Stunned by this, Rehit wonders how Maria knows that name, and Maria mentions that she was actually Ilia's best friend. Furthermore, she explains that Ilia did not create the fake holy sword to go against Lua, the goddess of light, but rather she made it to help King Kyle. Maria tells him that the fact he possesses this pendant proves he is the descendant of Ilia, and she notes that Ripon looked exactly like her. She then tells him to take that fake holy sword, which is currently kept in the Tower of Sage, and use its power to become much stronger. Castle and his friends continue their journey toward the snowy mountains where they intend to meet Master Pavle. Suddenly, an undead creature appears and attacks them without warning. Roy immediately takes charge and strikes it down, but he wears a brief and mournful expression after the victory. That night, while the rest of the group sleeps, Roy remains on duty to keep watch for potential threats. Castle wakes up to relieve him so he can rest, but he quickly notices that something is deeply bothering Roy. He asks about his past to understand his burden, and Roy explains that he once joined a mercenary group in a distant town. He reveals that he was dying of hunger when a man named Zayed found him. Zayed offered him food and introduced himself as the captain of a mercenary group. Roy wanted to do something to repay the kindness, so Zayed invited him to join his ranks. Surprisingly, that group did not fight to earn their living, but instead earned money by performing manual labor for others. One day, the captain met a client who spoke to him quite poorly, yet Zayed remained professional and treated the man well. After the client left, Roy expressed his frustration and asked why the captain allowed such disrespect. Zayed pointed out that he needed the money to take care of his children and that the sacrifice was worth it. Afterward, one of the group members revealed that their captain had lost his entire family and had since started taking in orphan children who had nowhere else to go. He even taught the young children who were unable to attend school for various reasons. As time passed, Zayed eventually accepted a request from Orvelia to investigate the Galua Plains. That area was the site of the legendary battle between King Kyle and the Dark Lord. For over 100 years, no one had been able to live there, and those who ventured into the plains never returned. Upon reaching the plains, one of their members disappeared. Zayed decided to look for him alone in his capacity as captain while advising the others to stay behind and wait. When Zayed failed to return, the group decided to move forward and search for him despite Roy's insistence that they follow the captain's orders. Fortunately, they found their captain and decided to look for their lost comrade together. Accidentally, the captain and another member stepped on a mysterious emblem on the ground and died instantly. Before the survivors could process the deaths, both men rose as undead monsters. The creatures began eliminating the group one by one, and Roy ran for his life until he eventually collapsed. When he regained consciousness, he found himself in front of Dominix, who explained the nature of the undead to him. Dominix offered him access to his research and the books within the tower in exchange for a future favor. Roy later realized that Dominix wanted him to stay so that he could eventually assist Castle in the future. Returning to the present, Roy reveals that the undead he eliminated this morning was actually one of his former comrades. The next morning, Castle tells Roy that if he found one of his undead friends in this area, there is a high possibility that his captain is nearby as well. They warn the girls to expect more undead attacks, but they are uncertain about where the threat might emerge. To solve this, Cleo creates a loud blast to attract any nearby monsters, but no one appears. They continue their journey, and Roy admits to Castle that there is another reason he joined this quest. He wishes to find his undead captain and finally put him to rest. Shortly after this confession, His undead captain indeed appears in front of them, and Roy engages him in combat. During the fight, another undead comrade intervenes, prompting Castle to provide a helping hand. Both of them eventually defeat their opponents without sustaining any injuries. By doing so, Roy finally completes the painful task he had wished to finish for so long. Castle and his friends continue walking through a deep canyon that leads toward their meeting with Master Pavle. He is a legendary sorcerer who famously participated in the Great War 100 years ago. According to Lorraine, the Master lives in a secluded ice cave, and Cleo mentions that they will encounter two major clues to confirm they are getting close. First, they will find an old log cabin, and then they will find a specific rock along the path that has a hole through it. Out of nowhere, a massive demon encounters the group, and everyone immediately becomes alert. After a brief struggle, Castle severs one of its legs and Roy removes its head to completely eliminate the threat. They continue their journey as the air pressure starts getting worse and the weather turns into a heavy storm. They struggle to move forward against the wind while Fry appears to be deep in thought. Surprisingly, the group suddenly finds that they are no longer affected by the heavy storm and can begin moving with ease. The log cabin finally comes into view, but Castle decides he wants to keep moving forward because he does not feel tired yet. However, Fry suddenly falls to the ground, which makes everyone panic. They decide to take a break for the sake of her health while Cleo prepares medicine from various herbs. When Cleo observes Fry, she begins to understand her symptoms and reaches a difficult conclusion. Shortly after, the boys return with water and find Cleo wiping away her tears. On the other side of the land, Princess Scarlet decides to depart for the Tower of the Sage to meet with Dominix. She considers that it is entirely up to Reheat whether he wants to stay in the village or go back to Orvelia. Back at the log cabin, Castle wakes up suddenly from a terrible dream. He steps outside to get some fresh air and Fry soon joins him. He explains that he has been having recurring bad dreams ever since the second seal of the sword was undone. He wonders if the holy sword itself is trying to communicate something to him. To calm him down, Fry pats his head and tells him to think about food, just like they used to do when they were children. She soon spots a snow bug and they both try to catch it, but Fry falls down once again due to her persistent weakness. They both head back inside the cabin to rest. Castle leaves the cabin in the early morning while leaving behind a note, but before he can slip away, Roy spots him and asks what he is thinking. Castle reveals that he has decided to finish this journey alone and wants Cleo and Roy to take Fry back to Orvelia for her safety. Roy argues back and calls Castle arrogant for this decision. He reminds him that if anything happens to him on the road, Fry will be the first person to regret not being by his side until the end. Furthermore, he explains that while he and Cleo were originally sent by Dominix, they have now become true friends by going through life and death situations together. Cleo appears and agrees with Roy. She explains that the real reason Fry is feeling so weak is that she has been protecting them through her magic this entire time. The storm never actually stopped. It was Fry who used her power to allow them to walk through it easily. She helped them to the point that all of her magic was completely drained, and people typically die from that level of exhaustion. Castle realizes how badly he misunderstood the situation and feels guilty that he is the one being protected instead of being the protector. Shortly after, Fry appears and shows that she has prepared herself to continue the journey. Castle turns to her and apologizes for not taking better care of her, and he states that he wants the four of them to finish this journey together as a team. As they move forward, Roy throws away the note and Cleo burns it into ash. Meanwhile, Scarlet's forces have prepared to leave the village while the princess receives a gift of flower desserts from Elise. As they are about to depart, Reheat appears and asks Scarlet for directions to the Tower of the Sage. Stunned by this request, the princess wonders what business he has at such a place. After she insists on an answer for several minutes, Reheat finally reveals that he wants to claim the fake holy sword. Castle now stands directly in front of Master Pavle, but he finds himself abruptly separated from his companions by a massive wall of ice. Pavle remains silent, offering no explanation as he launches a series of magical attacks toward the young knight. Castle is forced to defend himself, countering each strike with everything he has. On the other side of the barrier, Cleo repeatedly blasts the ice wall with her most powerful fire magic, yet the structure remains completely undamaged. Shortly after, Pavle traps Castle within a jagged ice crystal. Seeing her friend in danger, Cleo finally unleashes her ultimate move, successfully shattering the ice wall. As the group rushes forward to support Castle, Pavle suddenly ceases his assault and reveals that they have all passed his test. He explains that he was specifically testing Castle's friends to see if they would truly stand by him in a moment of crisis. Pavle believes that the wielder of the Holy Sword must have loyal allies to back him up if he is to perform effectively in the battles to come. Pavle then reveals that he has been waiting for Castle because he wishes to speak about his mother, Arlette. He states that Arlette was once here and that he was the one who protected her while she slept for all those years. He recalls the day he first met King Kyle, remembering how he initially refused to join the king's expedition to exterminate the demons. Despite receiving a cold refusal, Kyle eventually returned to seek his help again. Pavle rejected him once more, even when Kyle pointed out that the demons were gaining power and that the world would collapse if they were not stopped. Pavle showed zero interest at the time, stating that he did not want to get involved with humans or demons regardless of the world's fate. This apathetic attitude deeply annoyed Lorraine, who left immediately while declaring she never wanted to be friends with someone like him. Kyle also departed, and Pavle assumed they would never return. However, Kyle kept appearing at his cave, and eventually, Pavle began to enjoy their conversations. One day, when a massive demon attacked Kyle and Lorraine, Pavle stepped in to defeat it. From that moment on, he joined Kyle, and their journey to defeat the demons truly began. Eventually, their goals shifted from fighting lesser demons to defeating the Dark Lord himself. One evening at camp, Kyle requested that Pavle take care of Arlette if anything were to happen to him. Pavle wondered if Kyle expected to die, but the king pointed out that he could never give up on his life or the world. After the final battle, Kyle disappeared along with his enemy. Pavle then decided to seal the Holy Sword so that no one could claim it until the next heir arrived. Seeing the situation, Dominic's proposed preserving the body of Arlette along with her unborn baby. He suggested this because he was looking 100 years into the future, knowing there was a strong possibility the Dark Lord would return. While Lorraine was against the idea, Pavle understood the necessity and agreed with Dominic's. They then sought permission from Arlette, who also agreed because she believed Kyle would want that kind of protected future for his people. Thus, Pavle enclosed her in crystalline ice deep within his cave. Back in the present, Castle is stunned to learn that his mother spent so much time in this frozen place. As Castle speaks with resilience about his desire to defeat the enemy, Pavle sees a reflection of Kyle in him and comments that he thinks exactly like his parents. He then warns the group that the nocturnal sun is about to overlap with the moon tonight, meaning the Dark Lord's appearance is inevitable. He decides they must immediately unseal the Holy Sword, which is situated beneath the World Tree. That area is the most holy place in existence, and while no ordinary demon is allowed to approach it, the Dark Lord possesses the power to step inside. Furthermore, if the World Tree is destroyed, the entire world will perish, as the tree is one of the pillars supporting all of creation. At night, Malduk opens the gate through which the Dark Lord is expected to emerge. However, he is frozen in shock when he sees King Kyle himself stepping through the gate instead of the Dark Lord. Maria feels a profound sense of relief upon seeing Kyle, but as soon as she approaches him, a surge of dark energy engulfs his body. To her horror, he transforms into AniMaan, the Dark Lord. Malduk welcomes his master wholeheartedly but reveals that before they can proceed with their grand plans, there is still one small matter that requires their attention. On the other hand, Castle's group follows Pavle toward the World Tree by taking a secret shortcut. Meanwhile, Princess Scarlet separates from her main forces and travels to the Tower of the Sage accompanied by Reheat. She uses her sword to activate a mechanism, and the board teleports them both to a mysterious island floating in the sky. They soon meet Dominic's, who already anticipates her arrival. He knows she has come to ask how they can truly defeat the Dark Lord. Dominic's then turns his attention to Reheat, sensing that the elf is there for a different reason. Reheat confirms this by stating that he wants to see Ilia's laboratory, and when Dominic's mentions that the Dark Elves still hate Ilia, Reheat shows him her pendant as proof of his connection. Since the explanation is quite lengthy, Dominic suggests they have tea while they discuss the details. However, Reheat acts impatiently and demands to know the location of the laboratory immediately. Dominic's relents and shows him the workspace, noting that everything has been preserved exactly as it was left 100 years ago. Returning his focus to the princess, Dominic's reveals that the Dark Lord can only be defeated by the Holy Sword. He explains that the blade was sealed beneath the World Tree immediately after the last great battle. Scarlet wonders why he kept this information from her for so long, and Dominix points out that the secrecy was necessary to protect the sword from the demons. Furthermore, he explains that the weapon can only be wielded by a person chosen by Lua, and that person is most likely Castle, as he carries the blood of King Kyle. He straightforwardly reveals Castle's true identity to the princess, explaining how the son of King Kyle is still alive in the present day. When she asks why such a massive secret was kept, Dominix explains that if the public had discovered Castle's existence, it would have sparked a violent conflict over the right of succession to the throne. As they talk, it is revealed that Ilia was Kyle's half-sister and that she suffered the most after Kyle went missing. In the laboratory, Reheat loses his patience and sweeps everything off the table in a fit of rage. Amidst the mess, he suddenly spots a diary in which Ilia kept records of her creations. As he looks through the diary, he discovers that she was actually crafting magical equipment to help King Kyle rather than a fake sword. Her research had led her to ancient scripts regarding Lua, the goddess of light, and Leah, the goddess of darkness. A rivalry has existed between them since ancient times, as Leah sought to destroy the world with darkness while Lua aimed to protect it through the power of creation. Leah sent the Dark Lord to ensure the world's destruction, and in response, Lua created the Holy Sword and chose a wielder to stop him. During her research, Ilia discovered a tragic truth. The user of the Holy Sword is destined to disappear due to the overwhelming forces of darkness. Wanting to protect Kyle from this fate, she focused on creating her magical equipment. The diary also mentions a letter Kyle sent her, informing her about Arlette bearing his child and the fact that he had finally obtained the Holy Sword. Reheat finds no other information in the records except for a drawing of the pendant he currently holds. Frustrated, he goes straight to Dominix and points out that there was never a fake Holy Sword to begin with. He shouts that if the truth had been told to everyone sooner, the Dark Elves would never have had to suffer such a terrible reputation. Dominix calmly responds that the Dark Elves were the ones who chose to view Ilia as a sinner, and notes that he was away from the tower at the time because he was accompanying Kyle in the war. Reheat feels terrible after learning the truth about his ancestor. Scarlet arrives and tries to insist that he join her to counter the Dark Lord's return. At first, he claims he no longer cares about the world because he feels he has lost everything. However, Scarlet reminds him that the Holy Sword is real and that Castle is the rightful heir. This revelation makes him remember his previous encounter with Castle in the forest. Scarlet explains that she wants the two of them to join Castle's party so they can defeat the Dark Lord together as one force. Meanwhile, back on the journey, Pavle feels a massive wave of dark energy spreading across the land. He sternly advises Castle not to use any of the Holy Sword's powers yet, warning him that the demons will easily detect their location if he does. Chaos erupts across the land as legions of demons begin their march to destroy humanity and all other living races. In the middle of their grueling journey, Castle and his friends decide to pause so they can gather essential food and water. The group splits up to collect supplies, and Castle heads toward the water to refill their bottles. Fry joins him, and the two share a quiet moment discussing the legacy of King Kyle. Out of nowhere, a bee demon spots them and begins a relentless chase. Since Castle cannot risk using his Holy Sword powers for fear of detection, he grabs Fry and hides inside a rocky cave. Unfortunately, the demon immediately locates them and tries to break through the entrance. Fortunately, Roy appears just in time and begins countering the creature with his agile strikes. In the midst of the chaos, Castle steps out but is suddenly engulfed by a massive worm demon. While Roy manages to eliminate the bee demon, Castle is forced to use the power of the Holy Sword to cut his way out of the worm's body. As soon as he unleashes that energy, Malduk feels the surge and immediately takes his next move. He appears directly in front of Castle along with Maria and the Dark Lord. Everyone is stunned as they stare at the figure behind Malduk, wondering if he is truly the legendary Dark Lord. Malduk happily introduces his master to the group, leaving them in a state of absolute shock. The Dark Lord begins attacking immediately, while Pavle desperately tries to counter him with his powerful magic. Meanwhile, the rest of the friends try their best to hold off Maria and the Dark Forces. After an exchange of devastating attacks, the Dark Lord unleashes a move of overwhelming power. Pavle throws himself into the line of fire to take the blow and protect the others. As a result of the explosion, All four of them are thrown from the cliff and fall into the river below. Shortly afterward, the group fortunately emerges from the water alive, only to discover that Maria was the one who helped them survive the fall. They are confused as to why she would help them, but she only tells them to treat Pavle's wounds immediately or else it will be too late. She leaves the scene, and Fry tries to heal Pavle on the spot, but his condition remains far too critical for her current abilities. Soon, they spot a Trey ant that offers to carry Pavle to Lorraine, and Castle's group follows the creature closely. They soon reunite with Lorraine and Celine, who are both relieved to see the group safe and sound. Lorraine immediately attempts to heal Pavle, but his condition is incredibly grave. She concludes that this must be the work of the Dark Lord, as it is rare for a sorcerer of Pavle's strength to be weakened to such an extent. She decides to perform a specialized ritual to help him by drawing power from the forest, and she advises the others to get some rest. When Castle notices that Celine looks deeply worried, he asks her about it as a friend. She reveals that she is actually terrified of the Dark Lord's power. Castle tries to cheer her up by admitting that he was also incredibly nervous when he saw the enemy for the first time. After their light conversation, Celine feels much better and notices how much Castle has matured. In the meantime, Lorraine performs her ritual and successfully obtains a single drop of life essence from the forest. Elsewhere, Castle visits Chibi, and Fry joins him to offer a silent prayer. Unexpectedly, Maria appears right next to them and reveals that she wants to speak with Castle about something important. Before their conversation can begin, Celine interferes by aiming an arrow directly at Maria. Lorraine immediately tells Celine to stand down, as she remembers that Maria was once one of her comrades who fought alongside them as a priestess. This information shocks the entire group, as they cannot believe Maria has become a demon by choosing to serve Leah instead of Lua. Lorraine recalls that only Maria was present when Kyle fought his final battle with the Dark Lord, and she demands that Maria reveal the truth about what happened. Before she can say a word, it begins to rain, and the entire group heads inside for shelter. Lorraine immediately treats Pavle with the essence of life, and then turns her attention back to Maria to hear the full story of the battle. Since childhood, Maria was by King Kyle's side as a dedicated priestess. She cared for him deeply and healed his wounds whenever he suffered injuries. One day, the prince went into town incognito to buy bread from his favorite bakery. However, everything was sold out except for one last loaf. The baker refused to give it to him because it had already been reserved for someone else. Shortly after, Arlette arrived and met the prince for the first time. She explained that the bread was reserved for someone very special. Soon, a child from the Black Edge came running toward them, and the baker handed over the last loaf of bread to him. Arlette explained that the boy was currently working at a workshop in place of his parents, who were unable to work due to their injuries. Kyle decided he wanted to take care of the child, but Arlette pointed out that there were countless children in similar situations. She wondered if he intended to give them all the same treatment. After thinking for a moment, Kyle mentioned that he could always try to do his best. Eventually, their relationship grew stronger and the two fell in love with each other. Because the nobles were against their union, Arlette decided to disappear from Kyle's life. Soon after her departure, demons launched a massive attack, and Kyle fought with everything he had to clear them out. Afterward, he became the king and started an expedition alongside strong comrades to clear the land of demons. While camping during the journey, Arlette accidentally stepped inside Kyle's camp, and that was how the two were finally reunited. At that time, Arlette was already expecting Kyle's child. However, Kyle had to bid her farewell and promised to meet her again after the war ended. Soon after, he received the Holy Sword from Lua and was warned about the impending appearance of the Dark Lord. As time went by, Ilia was finally able to finish the magical device intended to help Kyle. On her way to deliver it, she encountered demons and sacrificed herself to protect the people. Meanwhile, Maria continuously prayed to Lua for Kyle's protection. Finally, the day of the battle arrived. While Kyle's companions stayed behind to fight the demons outside the castle of the Republic of Grey, Kyle and Maria went upstairs to confront the Dark Lord. They both stepped inside the rift where Kyle immediately engaged the Dark Lord with the Holy Sword. Eventually, he succeeded in piercing his sword directly into the Dark Lord, but unexpectedly, the power of the Holy Sword suddenly dissolved. Maria viewed this as a betrayal from Lua, believing the goddess had stripped the power away at the most critical moment. Because the holy light vanished, Kyle's body began accumulating the dark energy pouring out of the Dark Lord. He struck his sword into the ground, and the rift closed with him trapped inside, leaving only the holy sword behind. Maria was devastated and immediately ran to find Ilia, believing she might have a way to save Kyle. Instead, she found only Ilia's dead body. The people Ilia had protected revealed that she had sacrificed her life to save them. Maria was only able to recover a red stone from her, which is the pendant that Rahit now carries. After experiencing all of this loss, Maria heard a voice coming from Leah, who told her to join her side by cursing Lua. Maria immediately followed those instructions and became a demon chosen by Leah. She believed that by turning toward the darkness, she might eventually find a way to save Kyle and bring him back. Back in the present, Maria reveals the shocking truth that when the rift opened after 100 years, Kyle was the one who stepped out of it. However, he immediately transformed into the Dark Lord, meaning that Kyle himself is now the new enemy. Lorraine wonders if Maria will join them to fight against him, but Maria explains that it is against her will. Everyone is stunned, but Castle still plans to bring down the Dark Lord and find a way to save his father. Just then, Pavle finally wakes up and everyone rushes to his side. Maria takes her leave after a brief conversation with Fry about the goddess Lua. Upon waking, Pavle immediately unseals the final seal of the Holy Sword, making the weapon fully visible to the world. As soon as the seal breaks, Malduk and the Dark Lord feel its immense power from a distance. The next morning, Castle and his friends depart alongside Celine to claim the Holy Sword before any demon can reach it. Scarlet writes a detailed letter to Belle and informs him about every single thing they have encountered throughout their journey. She mentions the tragic elimination of Black Edge and their subsequent time taking refuge in a village. However, she intentionally does not tell him about what Rahit revealed regarding his major plan to take over Orvelia as an act of revenge. She writes about traveling to the Tower of the Sage and meeting with Dominix to learn exactly how they can defeat the Dark Lord. Then she discusses Castle, who is the true heir to the Holy Sword, and explains that she has decided to join his group as they head toward the World Tree. On the other hand, Celine handles the watch duty while the others are sleeping nearby. Soon, Cleo and Fry join her and begin telling her all the specific details about their journey since they originally left the forest of Elidora. They tell her about each and every event, from meeting the new chief of the orcs to helping find the missing villagers and traveling through the treacherous mountains to meet Pavle, who provided them with more details on Arlette and Kyle. They also describe how they unexpectedly encountered the Dark Lord on their way back to the forest of Elidora. After that, they discuss the story Maria told them, noting that it could be a lie or the truth, but they still decide to keep moving forward by supporting Castle. Celine points out that Castle has successfully changed her perception regarding humans, and Fry acknowledges this change. With that shared understanding, the bond between the friends grows even stronger as they prepare for the battles ahead. Orvelia's forces are preparing themselves to provide essential aid to Castle and his companions. Demia, the dedicated aide to the princess, remains determined to reach the World Tree as quickly as possible to offer support. During the march, she discusses Castle's true identity and realizes that Claus knew the secret all along. She wonders why he never informed the rest of the leadership, noting that they could have developed a much more effective strategy if they had known the truth from the beginning. Claus nods and reveals that, through his conversations with Castle, he understood that it was vital for the young man to undertake this journey without outside help. He believes that by traveling this difficult path, Castle has finally realized the true weight and responsibility of being the heir to the Holy Sword. Meanwhile, Scarlet and Rahit have nearly reached the World Tree. Scarlet is motivated by a desire to help Castle's party defeat the Dark Lord, whereas Rahit is driven solely by a need for vengeance against Malduk, the man responsible for the elimination of all his friends. Elsewhere, Castle's group is also making their final approach toward the World Tree. Overcome with concern, Fry stops and asks to speak with Castle privately. Sensing the gravity of the moment, Cleo decides to fetch some water, and the others follow her to give the two some space. Fry asks Castle if he is truly prepared to fight against his own father and wonders what will happen to him if he succeeds in defeating such a powerful foe. Castle explains that if the Dark Lord is indeed his father, then he is the only one who has the right and the duty to stop him. After hearing Maria's story, he has reflected on how his father fought until the very end to protect the world. Like King Kyle, Castle is willing to protect others even if it costs him his own life. Fry begins to weep, admitting she cannot bear the thought of losing him. She reminds him of his promise that they would always stay together. Castle comforts her by revealing that he has absolute trust in his companions. He believes that with their combined strength, they will defeat the Dark Lord and he will survive the encounter. In the meantime, Scarlet and Rehit finally reach the World Tree and step inside its sacred territory. The area is saturated with holy magic and appears incredibly beautiful. Eventually, Rehit spots the holy sword and, desperate for strength, attempts to claim it for himself. Even though the princess tries to stop him from interfering with the legendary blade, he ignores her and lays his hands on it. Soon after, Malduk arrives with the Dark Lord, but they are initially unable to enter the sanctuary because the goddess Lua has placed a powerful protective shield around the perimeter. However, the Dark Lord unleashes a move of staggering power and shatters the barrier. As the shield breaks, the World Tree begins to lose its holy influence, and the entire area is quickly consumed by dark energy. Malduk appears before Rehit to seize the holy sword. Blinded by his thirst for revenge, Rehit aggressively attacks him while the princess provides tactical support. He fortunately manages to injure Malduk, which sends the villain into a state of fury. After an exchange of powerful attacks, Scarlet succeeds in piercing her sword directly into Malduk. As she begins to gather energy for a final blast, Rehit recognizes the technique and immediately tells Scarlet to move aside so he can deliver the finishing blow. Together, Rehit and the princess manage to bring Malduk down. In a shocking display, Malduk's body loses its muscle mass and shrivels into a mere skeleton. Meanwhile, the Dark Lord ignores the fallen wizard and moves to take the holy sword, which has been thrown a short distance away. Scarlet tries to intervene, but she is far too powerless against his dark aura, and the sword unfortunately ends up in the Dark Lord's hands. Just as he prepares to strike the princess down, Demia arrives and uses her massive shield to protect Scarlet. It appears that Orvelia's reinforcements have finally reached the World Tree. Moments later, Castle's party makes a powerful entrance on the battlefield, leaving everyone stunned by their timely arrival. Scarlet informs Castle that the Dark Lord is currently carrying the holy sword, prompting Castle to attempt to reclaim it by force. His comrades do their absolute best to support him from the rear, but their efforts have little effect on the Dark Lord. The enemy effortlessly repels them by firing powerful attacks their way, which results in Celine being knocked to the ground. Claws, Demia, and Scarlet then launch a coordinated strike, but the Dark Lord gets rid of them immediately. Rehit jumps toward the Dark Lord and strikes his head repeatedly, successfully shifting the enemy's focus. This distraction allows Castle to strike the weapon, sending the holy sword flying away. Unexpectedly, the Dark Lord becomes even more powerful as soon as he lets go of the holy sword. He immediately counters Castle's next move and shatters his original sword. Roy rushes forward to occupy the Dark Lord's attention so that Castle can retrieve the holy sword, but the Dark Lord unleashes another devastating attack that forces Roy to fall back. In the meantime, Castle successfully gets his hands on the holy sword and activates its true power. The Dark Lord responds with a massive blast of energy that the group is barely able to withstand, while Castle counters it directly with the blade. As soon as the onslaught stops, Castle sees his friends lying injured on the ground. Refusing to give up, he continues his fierce struggle against the Dark Lord. Shortly after, Claus and Roy grab hold of the Dark Lord to pin him down while Cleo unleashes her ultimate fire magic, yet the attack does not affect the Dark Lord in the slightest. Standing back up, Castle recalls all the people he met throughout his journey and thinks of the many who suffered due to the demons. He refuses to yield as the brutal fight between him and the Dark Lord intensifies. After a massive exchange of blows, the Dark Lord kicks Castle away and fires a powerful beam of light directly at him. Out of nowhere, Rehit lunges forward and kicks Castle out of the way to save him, taking the full force of the blow himself. As Rehit collapses, his red pendant falls to the ground. Suddenly, Maria arrives and forms a magical cage around the Dark Lord. Seizing the opportunity, Castle pierces the holy sword right through him. Dark energy immediately begins rushing from the Dark Lord into Castle through the sword. Worried for his life, Fry rushes to save him by holding on, but she receives a sharp electric shock and falls to the ground. As Castle screams in pain, The red pendant activates and forms a massive magic circle that passes through both Castle and the Dark Lord. Empowered by this energy, Castle eliminates the Dark Lord for good, and his father finally returns to his normal human state. Everyone is stunned as Maria rushes to Kyle's side, relieved that he is finally free from the darkness. Unexpectedly, Kyle reveals that Lua never betrayed him and actually listened to his wishes. He explains that he was the one who suppressed the power of the Holy Sword 100 years ago, as he had prayed to Lua for his son to one day become the true heir. After telling Castle that he loves him, Kyle's body finally disappears. With his passing, the dark energy spreading across the land vanishes and the world returns to peace. As time passes, demonic activities across the kingdom are significantly reduced. Rahit becomes a hero to the Orvelian people, and Scarlet offers him an honorary noble title. However, he refuses the title because his priority is to convince the Dark Elves that Ilia was not a sinner and actually intended to help King Kyle. Meanwhile, Castle is officially promoted to a knight after his victory. His seniors wish to throw a promotion party, but he insists that he must leave immediately because the Holy Sword is signaling a new problem that requires his attention. Castle decides to go on a new trip, and Fry wishes to join him as well. Just then, Rahit arrives and hands the red stone back to Castle, revealing that Ilia created it and it is the reason Castle is alive today. Later, as Castle and Fry step out to begin their next journey, Roy and Cleo join them once again. Cleo happily displays a pouch full of coins provided by Dominic's for their travels. Fry quickly takes the pouch away, not wanting Cleo to spend all their money and leave them broke. With that, the four friends begin their new adventure together, while Rahit is reunited with Ripon thanks to the help provided by Maria. That's all for today, my fellow men of culture. Make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.